U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day, because your fight will prevail, and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again, because your cause is right, and God is on your side.
The purpose of coordinating with the Pakistanis will be to make the Soviets bleed for as much as long as possible.
Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today's Wednesday, September 12th, 2012. I'm Darko, my website's ggnonline.com. What you just saw there, of course, was Zbigniew Brzezinski, and it was basically rehashed. Everybody's seen this video about the United States basically supporting, backing Osama bin Laden and creating what is now known as the Al-Qaeda. Back then it was the Taliban and that. And that's why he's considered what? Obama's new brain. So he's the new foreign policy guru since Obama took office. There's some people that refer to Obama as Brzezinski's puppet. His foreign policy is completely written by people like this at the Council on Foreign Relations, and President Richard Haas would get into in a minute. Repeated exposure to traumatic images may be harmful to health. So this is, we're talking about the big terrorist attack of 9/11, of course, the World Trade Centers, where they showed it on the television, the media worldwide. It was imprinted globally on every single possible slave in the globe. That was done for a reason. Repeated exposure to violent images from the terrorist attacks of September 11th and the Iraq War led to an increase in physical and psychological ailments in a nationally representative sample of U.S. adults. So some people call it programming, brainwashing, imprinting of the masses. They're calling it collective traumas, so such as mass shootings and that. And this is to get people to think of terrorism, that this is the new thing, terrorism. So, and they're talking about the legacy of the 9/11 terrorists. In the article, this is coming from the Council on Foreign Relations, or your global government, it says Homeland Security in the U.S. and other countries is far more robust. So they got a lot of money, right? They clamp down on your security. This is part of the legacy of 9/11. It also goes down and says that the internet is a tool for radicalization. They're talking about waking people up to the truth, right? That they're living in a false reality. So the internet's dangerous and a tool for terrorists. And you go down here, it says on occasion terrorists will succeed despite our best efforts. So no matter how much of your freedoms and resources that you give up to fight terrorism, it doesn't guarantee that they will stop a terrorist attack. So that's part of the legacy of 9/11. But 9/11 also shows us that while terrorists can destroy, they are unable to create. They are not the inspiration behind the upheavals in the Arab world. Well, that's because they are. The roundtables is coming from the top down, the think tanks. It's not coming from grassroots bottom up. So yes, you can do things from the grassroots level that is peaceful and non-violent. What they like to do is they like to attach things with violence, such as anarchism. So that all anarchists, or people that have the philosophy of anarchists, are going to be violent, therefore terrorists. They should be treated as terrorists. Protesters who are waking up to the truth are now radicalized, which then could be deemed as violent and could be terrorist, or terrorists that could be violent. So we're just talking about repeated exposure to traumatic images may be harmful to health. So what do? We have this. We Shall Never Forget 9/11 coloring book, a graphic coloring novel for children. And of course, what? It's temporarily out of stock because the masses want to be imprinted. They want to brainwash themselves and their children and enrich and ensure that this false reality lives on. Let us never forget, remember? A day that will live in infamy, just like Pearl Harbor. It's funny, too, they call it the Kid's Book of Freedom. So it's all about slavery, right? I mean, most of the American people didn't want to go into World War II. They never even heard of Hawaii, let alone Hawaii wasn't even part of the United States. It wasn't a state. It was a territory, right? So this is what they do. They just blow shit up. They had prior knowledge of it, of a strike, and they did nothing about it, just like this. So you saw in the beginning video of Obama's, he was formerly known, this is like Obama's foreign policy guru that basically tells him what to do, pulls his strings. We're talking about bin Laden, right? He was just talking to him. 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden, America's anti-Soviet peace warrior and CIA intelligence asset. It says here, the commemoration anniversary of 9/11 brings to the forefront the issue of 9/11 truth. The official story is that Al-Qaeda, with the complicity of the Taliban government, was behind the 9/11 attacks. And that is why we are told that America is waging a global war on terrorism under the Pentagon's doctrine of preemptive warfare. And to talk about the blowback of this and how they try to put propaganda out there like this from December 1993, the London Independent anti-Soviet warrior puts his army on the road to peace. And there's his smiling mug right there. Only later, less than 10 years later, to be basically the devil incarnate, and he's going to come and kill all Christians. So it says here, Israel fingerprints all over 9/11 attacks, says U.S. lawmaker. A member of the U.S. House says there is numerous evidence provoking that Israeli regime had a major role in the 9/11 attacks. He says obviously they benefited tremendously from the attack. It really cut off the huge growing criticism of Israel. There are more and more nations that were recognizing the Palestinian state, and everything got short-circuited. I found this crazy article. NYPD opens branch in Israel. So the New York Police Department opened its Israeli branch in the Sharon District Police Headquarters in Israel. A former Israeli and veteran NYPD detective was sent on this mission. Lloyd's insurer sues Saudi Arabia for funding 9/11 attacks. A Lloyd's insurance syndicate has begun a landmark legal case against Saudi Arabia, accusing the kingdom of indirectly funding Al-Qaeda and demanding the repayment of £136 million it paid out to the victims of the 9/11 attacks. And we have this. Obama misleadingly claims 9/11 revived American values. That is right. He claims progress against Al-Qaeda ignores the ways in which the U.S. policy has laid a groundwork for blowback. Marked the 11th anniversary of the September 11 attacks by claiming the legacy of that day was a safer American people in a stronger country in a diluted nationalistic speech in front of the Pentagon. He says Al-Qaeda's leadership has been devastated and Osama bin Laden will never threaten us again. Our country is safer and our people are resilient. So some of the fallout of the September 11th attacks are stress, depression, and drug abuse. In the wake of the attacks, they found that high levels of both depression and post-traumatic stress among respondents and documented an increase in substance abuse, says the survey. Then we also have thousands set to claim compensation as federal government says there is a link between toxic dust from 9/11 aftermath and up to 50 types of cancer. So this was something that was disregarded before. This is for a reason, just like the radiation in the cell phones, which are not going to come out with real hard studies for another, 10 years and 20 years. 400 first responders or people who live near the site have died from cancer since 9/11. The Droga Act originally did not cover cancer because there was not enough evidence linking it to the toxins emitted at Ground Zero. So then in 2010, Congress finally passed the revised 9/11 responders health bill. They made it into a left-right thing, but really what it had to do with was money, right? It was just too much money. Said the deal lowered the cost of the bill to $4 billion, about $2 billion less than the earlier version, so it was agreement to slash the price tag of it. So, brave September 11th volunteer fell by illness from cutting steel at Ground Zero. He volunteered to cut steel at Ground Zero more than 9 years ago, and it cost him his life, and this is from 2010. Then we have 9/11 responders to be warned they will be screened by FBI's terrorist watch list. So finally when you could get it, you could have been a terrorist. And here's some more family values or American values post 9/11. Obama administration or regime urges Congress to renew broad surveillance powers. The regime still refuses to disclose how many Americans have been caught up in the warrantless surveillance program. So this is the program of, I don't know if you remember, the FISA Amendment Act of 2008. It authorizes broad warrantless surveillance of Americans' international communications. And I think I remember that Gonzalez character was under fire over that. There was a secret ruling against the NSA for spying on Americans. The Electronic Frontier Foundation suing the Justice Department for details of last month's ruling by a secretive U.S. court that the NSA's domestic spying program violated the U.S. Constitution. So this is happening. It doesn't really matter whether they're going to admit that they're doing it or not. They're already doing it. And you have the NSA whistleblower even explaining how the NSA is collecting data on all of you. And they have facilities now to store hundreds of years, at least 100 years, of every single communication that takes place every single second of the day. So they're doing it. All in the name of catching the terrorists, the boogeyman, like bin Laden. FBI begins installation of $1 billion face recognition system across America. So, of course, the people promoting this, the administrator, said the Department of Justice at this time will accommodate increased information processing and sharing demands in support of anti-terrorism. We're just talking about how NYPD has their own office in Israel. Look at this, CIA pulling agent who helped NYPD spy on Muslims. So they did. They said the CIA is withdrawing an agent who has been working inside the NYPD and helping to spy on Muslims. Another fallout or effect of 9/11 was Guantanamo Bay, right? Just scooping up any person that's brown, a Muslim, and leaving them in there to rot and die. Dead Gitmo prisoner was cleared for release. U.S. military has identified a Guantanamo Bay prisoner who died over the weekend as a Yemeni national had previously attempted suicide multiple times since his imprisonment a decade ago. So he was cleared for release. Followed by FBI promised martyrdom payments to sting target. Court papers show an FBI sting operation promised martyrdom payments of up to $1,000 a month to a Moroccan immigrant who eventually volunteered to kill himself in a bomb plot of the U.S. Capitol. So, like I said before, because the government is the biggest terrorist, you also have what? You have to do things like this. Like you have to have Guantanamo Bay where they torture people and say, see, look at, we're torturing people and everybody knows about it and you can't do anything about it, right? And most of these people are innocent. Oh yeah, and we're gonna, most of these sting operations are actually FBI themselves. So, just so they can, legitimize all the money that they're getting to fight the war on terror, which is really the war on the individual and sovereignty. It says here the FBI lurking behind every corner. The late Richard Accio, famed street lighting 60s radical who armed San Francisco Bay Area Black Panthers, has been implicated as an FBI informant. Surprise, surprise. So this is the Steer revolutions, right? APD officers infiltrated Occupy movement. So Dave Cortez, an Austin occupier, claimed he had interaction with one of the undercover officers, quote, supplying and encouraging these folks in Houston to be more aggressive with their actions, said Cortez. He would attend our meetings, pull me aside, and say we needed to do more aggressive actions, which he encouraged the folks to do in Houston, i.e. get violent. Software meant to fight crime is used to spy on dissidents. The software proved to be the stuff of a spy film that can grab images of computer screens, record Skype chats, turn on cameras and microphones, and log keystrokes. The two men said they discovered the mobile versions of the spyware customized for all major mobile phones. Then we move on to Twitter. Twitter must produce Occupy protester Malcolm Harris's tweets or face contempt from 9/12. Keep moving. CNN compares protesters to terrorists, insurgents. Recently, FBI and DHS warned law enforcement agencies about anarchist extremists and actually deployed this Wraith, a ground-based robot that can be armed with lethal or non-lethal weapons. They also had drones at the convention. DNC security rules trigger free speech worries. Really what they're talking about is ban water bottles, hairspray, socks, same thing as the airports, right? So similar things have been in place since last conventions, especially those following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Obama's Justice Department grants final immunity to Bush's CIA torturers, so they close the case of detainees tortured to death. In other words, Obama has put the U.S. beyond any accountability under the rule of law, so American values. Hundreds of British troops to be questioned over weak war crime allegations. Weak meaning they're going to walk. And when we return, CIA Mossad teams up to insult Islamic values. Thank you.